Isn't life beautiful? I think that life is beautiful.
Hey, listen!
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Shaq and today I'm going to be doing the Lil Peep book tag because I am emo as fuck. So in case you didn't know, I have been doing these Lil Peep reaction videos over on my main channel for a hot minute. I'll link them down below if you don't know already, if you haven't watched them. I haven't actually reacted to all the songs in this list, but I have been doing some reactions over there and I do really mean to upload the next part in that little series. I just haven't really had the time. So go ahead and check those out if you are a fan of Lil Peep at all. But this video will be kind of like combining Lil Peep, the songs that he makes, and books, my beloved books. The creator of the tag wasn't me, if you can't tell. It was the lovely Emma Books, and I will link her original video down below because I think this tag is really fun and unique and I can't wait to get into the questions. So why don't we just go ahead and get into it. The first question is surrounding Lil Peep's song Life. For this prompt we have to pick a book character that resembles our outlook on life, or is particularly like us and shares our experiences. Right, listen, when I hold this book up, you can't judge me, okay? You can't judge me. But the character I decided to pick for this question is Louis from Pet Sematary. Don't judge. Now listen, right? I'm not about here literally performing necromancy and freaking resurrection, right? But the way that Louis handles grief in this book and the slow decline in his mental health is just me. If you didn't know, then Pet Sematary is basically about Louis and his family who move into this really mysterious house, which is kind of like encompassed by a really busy road. And it's quite known that a lot of people have died on the road, especially pets and especially cats. Louis and his wife Rachel basically try to navigate their own grief and their own complicated relationships with death. Louis is a doctor and he deals with death every single day. It's not really a big deal to him until it happens to him more personally and more closely. Rachel lost her twin sister and blames herself and is now too afraid to bring up the subject of death to her family, to her friends, to her children, and the two of them kind of have to navigate around their own grief as they begin to lose people in their lives. This is a very deep thriller horror book which is very cleverly crafted around the concept of grief and death and how we deal with it and how we can become totally different people, even monsters, when we are so consumed by our own grief and what has happened to us. The only thing that Louis wants when these bad things happen to him is to bring his loved ones back to life, because he thinks that's the answer. He takes their bodies up to the pet cemetery and he tries to bring them back to life, but every single time he faces consequences. Instead of just letting go of them and dealing with grief in a natural, normal way, he decides to go about it in a dark, twisted way that kind of brings himself so far to who he actually is that he doesn't recognize himself at the end of the book. The reasons why I relate to Louis so heavily and decided to pick him for this prompt in particular is because I have lost so many people in my life, both death and just to people walking out in my life, and I haven't dealt with loss until this point very healthily. I just found Louis' character so thought-provoking and morally grey, and I related to him so much because I have been so guilty of just kind of like burying my feelings and thinking that things won't happen to me, and they absolutely will. Death gets everyone in the end, and that's just a way of life, and there's no point in running from something that's like inevitable. It's best to deal with the problem now and in a healthy way rather than getting yourself so worked up that you don't even recognise who you are anymore. Yes, I love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I actually filmed this for a Mother's Day vlog because my mum really likes this book and she told me to read it. So I read some of their favourite books for Mother's Day and this was one of them, so I'll go ahead and link that down below if you want to see more of my thoughts. But I really did enjoy this and it's one of my favourite books now, and I related to Louis heavily. Our next prompt is for star shopping, and this prompt is to pick a book that is hyped but deserves it. It wouldn't be a Stories with Shaq video if I didn't mention Cassandra Clare at some point, and so I'm going to mention her in this video. Like all of them, my answer for this one is definitely the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. These are some of the most hyped up books on BookTube for me. I see them almost every day, everywhere. And these 3 books definitely deserve the hype that they have, especially the first and the last book in my humble opinion. I love the series so much. If you're unfamiliar, then the Shadowhunter series is basically a world where demons walk the earth and there are these angelical beings called Shadowhunters which protect mundanes from the demon energies. And there's so many different connections, politics in this. It is really great. And the Infernal Devices, which sits at the very beginning of the Shadowhunterverse, is no different really. We follow Will, Tessa, Jem, Jessamine, Boys, Nate, the Magister, the Dark Sisters. There's everything for everyone, to be honest. There's really good characters, really good relationships, complicated, grown-up decision making to be made. There's war, there's fighting, there's action. The clockwork creatures are fucking creepy, alright? I stand by that. There's something for everyone in this series, and if you don't like it, you probably suck. Kidding! Please don't leave! And I haven't dealt with loss until this point very healthy.
Child. Anyway, so.
Yes, anyway, the Inferno Devices, they're really good. If you haven't tried them yet, I highly suggest it. Obviously, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really do think they deserve the hype that they do get. The next question is for Lil Peep's song, Haunt You, Like a Fucking Ghost. This prompt is to pick a book that I just couldn't stop thinking about when I finished it. I'm gonna go ahead and pick a book that actually Emma Books, that was a very long sentence with a lot of books in it. Emma actually did talk about this on her channel and I got the recommendation from her. And that book is Heroine/Heroine by Mindy McGuinness. This book, oh my fucking god. So this book surrounds Mickey, who is a softball star. So Mickey and her other softball friend, they get into a car accident and so they are told that they can't compete in the softball championships or whatever's going on at the time. But instead of like making peace with that and letting her body recover in its own time, Mickey goes down a slippery slope of medicating herself to the point where she gets addicted to heroin. I really like this book. It is harrowing. It has a lot of trigger warnings, so if you're sensitive to addiction, to grief, to overdose, to death, like all those things, mental health and some like sexual abuse and stuff like that as well, be careful going into this book because it can be so triggering. But it taught me so much. The reason why this was so haunting for me was because of the characterization of Mickey. She is a drug addict. I don't think we follow enough drug addicts in fiction, especially not in adult or young adult fiction anyway. The characterization of Mickey and her being so morally grey was so well done for me. I loved the element of us wanting to be there for Mickey and wanting her to come clean, but also she's in so much pain and she deserves to self-medicate. But also addiction is a really bad thing and she should get the help that she needs. She spins all of these lies and manipulates those around her. She begs, borrows and steals, becomes a criminal basically, doesn't even recognise who she is. We just feel so sorry for her. Like that's the thing, we feel so empathetic for her rather than she's a horrible person because we know that she's not. And I had this like inner war with myself, thinking what I would do in that situation if someone came to me and had been hiding all of this from me. And if I was in Mickey's position, what would I do? I think it's a step forward in understanding people with addictions and addictions themselves. And it's a really good depiction of what that is like and living with it. And I just enjoy this so much. And it definitely did haunt me for a long time. Still now, right? Our next prompt is for Beat It. Uh-oh. I have to unhaul a book right now. Oh, I don't know. Oh, this. That's what I'm gonna unhaul. I finally bloody picked something, did I? And that is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World by Brian Lee O'Malley. I like the film of this. It's actually one of my favourite films, but at the same time, like, Scott is a horrible person. It's basically about Scott who is dating an underage girl. He goes to a girl called Ramona, and in order to be with her and to be the best boyfriend ever, he must defeat all of her ex-partners so that he can win her trust, basically. It's a very, like, video game-esque movie and it's really good. But I just found the issues with Scott and him being an arsehole and treating women badly was just too much for me, and so I'd like to unhaul it. You're welcome. Our next prompt is for the song Glassy, and this prompt is to pick out a I struggle, a relationship in books that you admire. So I have a couple of ones for this one. I was gonna cop out and put the Inferno Devices again here because I really admire Will and Tessa's relationship, but I decided to go for another answer instead. For some reason, I really enjoy family dynamics in my books, and for me, the books Rick by Alex Gino and also To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han both have family elements in them that I really enjoy. In Rick, we have Rick's relationship with his granddad going to visit him in his care home and the relationship that they both have together. Unfortunately, one of my granddads did pass away a few years ago and I'm trying to still get to grips with that grief and the closure that I didn't get. But this depiction of Rick with his granddad really just melted my heart and I really admired that. And then To All the Boys I Loved Before follows Laura G, who's a hopeless romantic, and she has a very close bond with her dad and her two sisters. I love that family dynamic. I love the fact that their dad is trying to be, although he is white, he's trying to, you know, really celebrate the girls' Korean heritage, and I just love that so much. I love the fact that they're all just looking out for each other and caring for each other, and you can really get that from the book, and I just admire it so much. The next song is Crybaby, and the prompt for this is to basically pick out a book that made you cry and tell the story of how it made you cry. Now, I had a very stereotypical answer until I read this graphic novel very recently, and that is Paper Girls Volume 2 by Brian K. Vaughan, Cliff Chang, Matt Wilson, and Jared K. Fletcher. Essentially, Paper Girls is a graphic novel series that follows a group of girls who are on their paper round in the late 80s. They are suddenly transported to the year 2016 and they see the developments of society and language and the things that, you know, we use now. One of the main characters, Erin, bumps into her older self, and her and the other Erin and the other Erin that comes after that. But Erin and her older self go on this huge like journey together, and the older Erin is basically protecting the younger Erin. The reason why this got me so much is because I'm currently in therapy working through some trauma that I've got, you know. Right now we are doing all about self-compassion and healing my inner child. I just felt a connection to that, and I just kind of got what they were trying to do with that whole storyline, with the older Erin protecting younger Erin and her asking her loads of questions, and the younger Erin turning around to older, this is getting very confusing, to older Erin and saying like, how can I ever repay you for everything that you've done for me? You know, you're awesome, you're amazing. And I just found it so emotional because of what I'm going through right now. I don't think everyone else has the same experiences with me. I don't even think that's like the intended thing of the authors or anything. That just really resonated with me, and it made me a wee bit emotional. I'm not gonna lie. Next, we've got Hellboy, and we had to pick a book that introduced us to a genre that we now love. For me, I'm definitely gonna have to go with Shades of Lovers by Catherine Hancock. I've been talking about this book quite a lot on my channel recently, but it's basically a poetry collection about love, heartbreak, healing, self-love, all that jazz. I love this book when I read it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I read it exactly the time that I needed it, after a really bad breakup last year in quarantine, and I just really needed to hear what this book had to say. And it's one of those poetry books that really inspired me to not only read other poetry collections, but also write my own. And so I fell in love with poetry because of this book. Next, we have The Brightside, which is to pick a book that others hate, but you love enough to push past negativity. So I think hate is a strong word. I don't think people necessarily hate these two books in the bookish community, but definitely from like a superhero gatekeep kind of way. And I'm gonna answer with these like DC icon books. The first one I had to talk about is Catwoman, which is by Sarah J Maas, and also Wonder Woman by Leigh Bardugo. A lot of people who read these books were very big fans of the superheroes slash supervillains that are depicted in each of these books, and a lot of the negative reviews came from the fact that they didn't stick to canon and they weren't well researched and loads of other things. But for me, they're really good stories, and I really enjoyed both of them. I just was here for the story and for the journey and for the time, for the characters. I just felt it was really well done, and I enjoyed both of them, and I could see past people negatively reviewing them. I just could see past it. And the last question is sex with my ex. This prompt is to pick an author that you didn't like at first but keep giving second chances to. I could have gone with a lot of answers for this one, but I decided to go with one author that, although I don't hate her poetry just isn't necessarily for me. Yet I keep buying everything that she has bought because I've given her second chances in the past, and I just kind of expect more, but I'm not getting more, if that makes sense. For me, that is definitely Rupi Kaur, who wrote The Sun and the Flowers, Milk and Honey, and also Homebody. Rupi Kaur gets quite a lot of shit online because of the way that she writes and reads her poetry, and every time I see this, I'm a little bit disheartened that the bookish community are kind of like taking the piss out of Rupi Kaur. I don't think it's just the bookish community, I think it's like a wider generational society thing. But Rupi Kaur was my first introduction to loving poetry. Although that I'm more of a sophisticated reader now and her poems kind of come across as a little bit simple, they are still her art and still her work, and I think that's ultimately why I keep giving her a second chance, because I just genuinely hate the way that people talk about Rupi Kaur and her poetry now. It's not a meme, it's genuinely what she struggled with and how she chooses to develop that and, you know, make something beautiful out of pain, and I don't think someone should be like berated for that just because it's not up to your standard and not up to your taste. But yeah, I do keep giving Rupi Kaur a chance because I just do think that her poetry is for me, but like I have to really search the poems that are for me. I think that's why I keep giving her a second chance. Well, there you have it. There is my finished Lil Peep tag, which was kindly created by Emma Books. I will again link her original video down below. If you like Lil Peep, then answer any of these questions and make sure to tell me your favourite Lil Peep song. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up and a subscribe if you did enjoy. I hope that you enjoy any books that you pick up or any productive activity that you managed to do. Ashes are hard. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.